I would like to think that you watch my videos because you have a desire to improve as a wedding photographer, and if so, that's great. You are exactly who I want to be watching my videos. And knowing that you are watching puts me under pressure to make sure that the shoots and the photographs which I am showing you are of a good enough quality to share with you. And that's good, because that pressure pushes me to think more about what I do, and in turn I like to think that I improve as a photographer as a result. The upshot is that we both learn together. I help you and you help me, and I love that. My most popular videos are the videos where you see me shooting live, or where I talk you through exactly how I took a particular photograph and all the technical information that goes with that, what lens I use, what aperture and shutter speed. Likewise, the most popular videos on other photography channels tend to be gear reviews, this lens versus that lens, and why this camera is better than that camera. And that's great, because the technical side of photography is the part which is easiest to learn. But the truth is, the thing that holds most wedding photographers back from truly becoming the photographers that they wish to be has virtually nothing to do with the technical, and it certainly has nothing to do with whether the latest Canon is better than the latest Sony. The biggest obstacles that we face, I believe, are to do with mindset and belief. There are certain beliefs and worries that we seem to have as wedding photographers that can really hold us back, and these worries have nothing to do with aperture and shutter speed. So in this video, I want to talk about 5 of these issues and worries that many of us seem to share, to show you that if you believe these things, you are not alone, and hopefully in knowing that, you'll find it easier to overcome these concerns. Because having a positive mindset and belief in yourself is far more important than having the latest and the greatest camera. Oh, can you believe this is our summer? It's the middle of July at the moment, and look at the weather. It is grey, it's been raining, it's horrible. Anyway, let's start this video with one of the most common things which I know can hold photographers back in terms of developing and pushing themselves, and that is worrying about what other photographers think of you. Now, I've talked about this before on my channel, but I feel it's definitely worth mentioning it again, because through the training that I do, it is something which I hear come up time and time again, and I think it's just such a shame. Worrying about what other photographers think of you and your work, whether it be that you can't do this because so-and-so will think that you're copying, or you can't do that idea because what will that photographer think if you do. It is a worry which can literally stop you from progressing and developing as a photographer. And as I say, that is just such a shame. When I first started offering my workshops, I was definitely worried what other photographers would think. Would they judge me because they felt that I wasn't good enough to offer training, or I didn't have enough experience? I felt similar when I started my YouTube channel, but ultimately it makes no sense when you think about it. All it does is potentially just stop us from doing the things that we really want to do. The beauty of being your own boss is just that. We don't have to ask for anyone's permission to try something new. So remember that. And if you do want to try something new, don't let your worries about what others may think stop you from doing it, because those worries are only holding you back. So go for it. Oh, and as the rain comes down. Related to that first point is being scared of failure. Failure is seen as being a very negative word and it gets a really bad rep. But I look at it another way. If you aren't failing, you probably aren't trying anything new. Whenever we try something new, in particular a new skill, we are almost certainly going to fail at it at first. But that's completely natural. It is part of the process. No one tries something new and is immediately great at it. That just never happens. Initially, we make mistakes, but then we start to learn from those mistakes and we improve. Failure is a vital part of the process of improvement, but if we're scared of failure and we're scared of trying something new for fear that it won't work out how we want and we fail at it, we'll just never push ourselves to try new things. And if we don't try new things, then we can't improve. So try to see failure as being a good thing, because it shows that you're trying new things, and failure is only ever temporary. Failure is just the initial part of a longer process. And remember that it's only through failing at something that we will learn and improve. So embrace failure. So just so you know, I'm filming today's video at a place called Entwistle Reservoir, which is in Lancashire. It's a really beautiful place. I enjoy coming here. In fact, the last time I was here though was for my Roundup of 2019 video, which I will link to up here. And I say I've not been back here since, but it just seems such a shame. I've come and so many of the trees have been chopped down since I made that video. Not just a few, absolutely loads of them. All over the place as well, not just here. I just hope there's a good reason for it, because it seems such a shame. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that because it's yeah, it's quite sad. Anyway, enough of the negativity. So I've come into the forest to try and stay away from the rain a little bit. So next up is something which can be huge in affecting our mindset in quite a negative way, and that is believing all that we see on social media. So if you're like me, you're probably friends with lots of other wedding photographers on Facebook. You'll probably follow lots of other photographers on Instagram as well. And that's fine, and social media can be really, really good for building relationships and just having a place to chat with other photographers. But the downside is that we're constantly bombarded with amazing images, and ultimately that can make us look at our own work and just feel a bit deflated in comparison. But the thing to remember is this: what we see online from other photographers is the absolute best of their best work. I know that is what I try to do. I may take 4,000 or 5,000 images on a wedding day. I'll deliver about 500 of those images to my bride and grooms, but I'll probably only show 3 or 4 of those at the most on my Instagram, and they're my 3 or 4 favorites. So what you're seeing is only a tiny fraction of what I actually take on a wedding day, and that's exactly the same as what lots of other wedding photographers do. But what we then tend to do is compare the whole of our work against those top 3 or 4 images, and if we do that, we're bound to feel like our work isn't good enough. And remember also that what we see online is virtually always self-promotion and marketing. It's just smoke and mirrors. So if you see a photographer talking about how they've just received an avalanche of inquiries, or they're already booked for the next 3 years, don't believe it. Use social media for all the good which it can offer us, but don't compare your reality against someone else's marketing. Okay, now next up is one that I think every wedding photographer feels, especially when they're starting out, and that is the misbelief that having the latest and the greatest cameras will make you a better photographer, because I can tell you now, it won't. Ultimately, a good photographer is a good photographer because of their vision, their ability to see light, to anticipate moments and see compositions. None of those traits, though, have anything to do with what camera they use. Obviously, having a good camera and good lenses definitely provides you with a leg up. For example, when I moved to the Sony A9 from my Nikon DSLRs, that definitely helped me, but only in the sense that it made it easier for me to achieve the shots which I had already envisioned in my head. But I still had to see those shots and compose them in the first place. A good photograph is made up of light, moment and composition, and thankfully, yet anyway, a camera cannot see any of those for you automatically. You as the photographer have to see the shot. The camera is just a tool to make that shot a reality. You will benefit so much more from shooting more and from practicing than you will from buying the next great camera which lets you shoot at like 1 million ISO or something. So remember, you don't need the most expensive and the best equipment to be a good photographer. That's just a misbelief. So don't let all the marketing from the camera firms make you believe that. It just isn't true.
Now, when I sat down to think about what were the things which I felt held most wedding photographers back from truly being the best photographers which they can, this was the answer that jumped out at me, and it is one that I'm sure we have all felt. And that is simply the feeling that we're just not good enough. And because we're not talented enough right now, there is no point in aiming higher. But I can tell you now, that feeling never goes away. Self-doubt is just something which we all have to learn to live with. But the time to worry is not when you feel that self-doubt, it is when you don't feel that way. I'm friends with lots of wedding photographers who, in my opinion, are insanely talented, and I've been lucky enough to go on the workshops of wedding photographers who I consider to be amongst the very best in the world. And I can tell you now that through speaking to those people, they all have that same feeling, and I know I do too, that feeling that we're just winging it and at some point we're going to get caught out. That feeling that we aren't good enough is just part of the wedding photographer DNA, it seems, but the thing is, we can use that feeling not as a negative, but as a positive to push us on. That doubt will never really go away, but by not accepting that feeling and by fighting to overcome it, the irony is that we will be improving all the time. Having self-doubt also has no bearing whatsoever on talent. So if you feel that you aren't good enough, don't worry, it's completely normal and it shows a desire to improve. I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, if you have any questions at all, please pop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them, and I will see you next time. That feeling that we aren't good enough, flies everywhere.